and I have to stop moving simply because I jingle.
Oh, yeah. Jingle bells. Cool.
Hi Joe, welcome to come. Scratch.
2,000 of those, don't worry.
God. Usually I haven't done it yet, but I don't know. Maybe nervous. Who knows?
Don't worry.
No, I don't think so. Okay. Hi Joe, welcome to our video today. I've been very excited to have you on board the magazine. Thank you for being a contributor. I know that you've done so much stuff, and I asked you to put yourself into a box about, what do you call yourself, and so you're an energy coach, but you do so much more than that, and you teach much more than that, and you've written books, and so I'd love for you to tell the viewers who you are, what you do, and how you can help them.
Okay, well firstly thank you so much, Sharon, for having me here. I love contributing and to the global health community that you're creating. My journey, I guess the crux of what's important for our viewers around my journey is the fact that about 17 years ago I started off as a chef, and that was kind of my first life. And as a chef, you learn how to make food look great, taste great, but believe it or not, the nutritional component of what's important and what the body needs isn't necessarily what a chef, at least a chef back in the arena that I was working in, wasn't the first thought that we would have. So I chefed, and it allowed me to travel a lot, and that, I loved that. And then I got to a point in my life where I felt I wanted something more. The truth is I was starting to lose my passion for chefing. And my quest for greater fulfillment, meaning and purpose in my life was what I was searching for. And at that time, my partner kind of brought me to the awareness of, well, if you're not in the kitchen, you're in the gym. So, maybe that's where you have another passion that you need to explore. So I was like, okay, there's some truth there. So I went away back then, 17 years ago, and did a basic PT course, and I decided to make a transition out of the chefing industry into the health and wellness industry. And I did so by, as most people looking for a career transition, I kept one job going whilst I started to build up clients, having done the PT course, started to get a part-time job in a gym, built up clients first thing in the morning, last thing at night, and did the day job, to keep it going. And so I got to the point where I, could have enough clients to substitute the income that I needed to give up chefing, and that's what I did. And I guess I was in the industry for about a year and a half when I started to think, oh my God, is this all it is? Just counting reps and putting weights on and off.
Which is what it all used to be.
Which is absolutely, and I entered into very bodybuilding, body sculpturing mentality of a gym. And so that was very much the first kind of level of awareness and consciousness that I mingled with within the health industry. And it actually, in hindsight, when I look back with everything that I went through, because shortly after starting my new career, I had a lot of self-esteem issues and a lot of self-confidence issues, a lot of body image issues. I didn't look what I thought I needed to look like for a personal trainer. I mean, who's going to hire me?
One.
Yeah. When you don't feel comfortable in your body, and as much as it's your own perception, you get to project it out there, and then your energy is attracted by people, and you start to get a bit of an evidence of what it is that you think and feel. And that makes you kind of feel even worse. So I was like, I really got to do something about this. So I don't do things in halves. So I started to look into body sculpturing and bodybuilding and I know you can relate to this as well. And I put myself on a regime. I got myself a personal trainer, bodybuilder, ex-Mr. Universe. And said, look, this is what I want to do. I want to really transform my body. I really want to look and feel the person I'm trying to be. And and he was like, okay, this is what we've got to do, and it was a 2-year process, and I competed at the end of that 2-year process. But as most people will know, and if they don't, I'll share with them right now, it's a rigorous, and in most cases, certainly back then, I mean, we can do it a lot more healthily now because of what we know, but back then, it was pretty severe, the kind of regimes you put your body through, and you know, the dieting and the restrictions, and a lot of the choices actually created more problems for me, and I didn't know it at the time.
I can relate to that a little bit because I did my bodybuilding competition, and I went to, I was over in New Zealand. I had a nutritionist recommended to me, but because of my thyroid issues, my body doesn't always lose weight like the average person. And she kept thinking I was cheating, and I'm like, I'm really not cheating. I was training 3 hours a day and eating like 6 meals a day, but one of those meals was 1/6 of a protein bar. And I was working in the gym, and I'd sit outside, and the trainers were all like, Sharon, you should be eating more. And I'm like, but this is all she's giving me. And the thing is, I stick 100% to what I do. And so for me, it certainly wasn't healthy at that point to be doing that. And that's the nature of how it used to be.
It is, and you know, a lack of understanding back then for, you know, the body, you know, what they teach you at personal training, just to come out with a Cert 3 or Cert 4 in personal training is, you know, it really isn't enough to understand what creates health.
Yeah.
And as we know, health and fitness aren't synonymous. You know, you can be fit but not necessarily healthy. And I think that was probably the biggest turning point for me. I competed for 3 years, and at the end of the 3 years, I had dug such a hole for myself in this quest to become this picture of health. And I dug literally the opposite kind of hole into chronic fatigue, irritable bowel syndrome, severe food allergies and sensitivities. And it was at that point that it was a real turning point for me. I met a mentor of mine that's still a teacher and mentor today, a guy called Paul Check. And he's the founder of the Check Institute. And I started my journey back then, 15 years ago, with Paul. And today I teach for him as part of the Check faculty. And he was my turning point in having me realize what it actually takes to create health from the inside out. And so my journey has been one where I sit now, having experienced firsthand what it's like to feel completely fatigued, with, you know, severe digestive problems, which affect mental and emotional problems. And I'm also in a place where I have, you know, healed, and I continue to heal. I don't believe it's something that we complete in a lifetime. I think we're always continuously healing, but just at new levels. And so I'm, you know, in my 40s now, and probably the healthiest. I mean, I feel the healthiest I've ever felt in any, you know, any part of my life. And a lot of that is down to really understanding that awareness is the first step, and understanding that there are some fundamental principles, if you like, that create health. You know, there's foundations. When we go and build a house, there's foundations, and if you don't, you know, live by those rules, then the house doesn't, you know, doesn't last long. And you know, our bodies aren't too different from that. So my journey's been wide and varied. I bring my chefing back into how I work with my clients today because it's such a fundamental, it's one of the key fundamental principles, we are what we eat. And I use my skills that I learned back then and couple that now with my knowledge of nutrition and nutrition for the individual. And my journey's brought me to that place where understanding that holistic health is honouring the whole body, and therefore we have to understand the body as an integrated system, and how does the physical, has it become affected by the mental and the emotional, and the spiritual flow that runs through us. And when we don't positively or actively engage with that flow of energy, when we resist it, how does that manifest into the mental and emotional? That essentially we are a mirror of, our body's a mirror of our mind. It requires a healthy mind to create a healthy body, and it's a two-way highway.
I think that's the key, isn't it? We can't just think, I need to get my nutrition sorted, or I need to get my exercise sorted, or I need to get my thinking sorted, or I need to just get sleep and I'll be okay, or I just need to be hydrated. It's a whole big picture that we need to look at, and we need to do little things every day, and it's like a little journey. We can't go from being very unhealthy to a week later being healthy. It's a process. And I know that we'll talk more about the foundations. Can you go briefly into what the foundations are now, what you teach people, and then obviously we can go in a little bit deeper in another interview maybe.
Sure. So as part of the Czech Institute model of health and well-being, which is one of the most holistic models I've ever come across, which is why I'm such an advocate of it, and I have the privilege of teaching it. But they're fundamental universal principles, and Paul has distilled them down into 6 very simple principles, and that is our thoughts and attitude, breathing, hydration, nutrition, movement, and sleep. And at any level of physical reality in this time-space dimension that we're in, if we're out of balance, out of kilter, then you don't need to look too far within those 6 foundations that we are engaging with every single day. You can look at and see where you're out of balance. And, Paul has kind of distilled those 6 foundation principles even further, and we work with a very simple model, which is 4 doctors. And we actually call it the last 4 doctors you'll ever need, which is Dr. Happiness. And you kind of think of Dr. Happiness as the guy who sits on the stool, okay? And if a stool is to stay upright, it needs 3 legs. And those 3 legs are Dr. Movement, Dr. Diet, and Dr. Quiet. And those 6 foundation principles actually sit within those 4 doctors. And when you start to understand how that model works and what is relevant to you, your experiences and your choices within those 4 doctors, then we're working with really a very simple model. And I guess that's the paradox of life is, we're a very complex organism, yet what we need at a basic level is really quite simple. We need the right amount of food, we need to be breathing functionally, we need some healthy thoughts, we need to make sure we're getting enough sleep and rest. And we have evolved through movement. So movement is part of growing awareness, consciousness in movement, and whether it's our thoughts or our body, we are an example and an expression of movement of energy. And so they're the foundations, they're the basic principles, and from that we create a framework that we start teaching and educating people on choices. And it's a combination of everything that we teach is grounded in science. It's become proven evidently through science, whether that's quantum physics, quantum mechanics, neuroscience, all the way through to modern medicine of today. And I guess the beauty of our work is that it is a true representation of Eastern and Western philosophies working at their best together.
That's what I love about it. It's 10, 20 years ago it was all hocus pocus stuff and a bit airy fairy, but now science is caught up and it's backing it up, and it's just amazing. It's a very exciting time to be part of a movement like this.
It really is.
Yeah.
It really is, and exciting for anyone who's willing to engage as well. And we always say that Dr. Payne turns up as a gift of awareness for what is out of balance in our life, when we're not honouring what the 4 fundamental doctors require and need to keep Dr. Happy on the stool and nice and balanced in life. Dr. Payne turns up as a gift of awareness, and it's whether or not the individual is willing to take it as a gift of awareness to what their choices are actually creating for them.
Cool, thank you. So I know that you take personal clients as well. So before we finish, can you just briefly, if I was a client and I was coming to you, what would be the process that you would go through? Obviously it would be different with different clients, but is there a formula that you go through?
Yes, there is. I mean, first of all, I go through quite a rigorous screening process. I interview my clients and I give my clients an opportunity to interview me. It's very important that there is a synergistic relationship there, that I feel that I can help them, that my skill base is relevant for what they're looking for, but also to determine what their readiness for change is and what their readiness for the sort of change that I know is required if they're really looking for transformation in their life. So that's done by a series. Well, first of all, it's just a half an hour complimentary chat that we have either over the phone or face-to-face or Skype, just so we can get a baseline understanding. It's important that whoever I work with really understands how I work and the various dimensions of their life that I will go into, because you can't help somebody at a physical level without getting involved with what their relationships are to other people, to their diet, to their career, to their money, to all of these aspects in our life that are affecting how we think and feel. And so it's important that, you know, prospective clients understand the scope with which I delve into, because not everybody is, when they go to look for, you know, physical assistance, they can be a little taken back when you start asking them, well, what's your relationship with your mum or your dad? Or
maybe they're just looking for the personal trainer 20
it.
years ago.
That's it, exactly. So I kind of make that very clear, so there's no misinterpretation further down the line. And then if it's all a go-ahead, and we both feel mutually that it's the right fit, then it's a series of questionnaires, a number of comprehensive questionnaires that give me a baseline understanding of where what we call your overall physiological stress load is. So we have questionnaires that give obviously a subjective, because it's the individual who's filling it out based on how they feel and what they think is contributing to their problems, and they will help me to decipher various parts, systems within the body that are under stress. And then we have a lifestyle questionnaire, we have a health and wellness awareness questionnaire, we have a comprehensive questionnaire that looks at all the what we call the autonomic system, so all those systems within the body that operate without your conscious thought. And we really assess where the stress load is, and then we put a plan together, working essentially within the 4-doctor model. And the idea is one of both education as well as very practical action. And it's about working at the mental, emotional and physical. You know, I think a lot of people focus on what I call kind of destination goals, the end goal, and they stay focused on what their end goal is. And it's educating them that there is what we call a process goals. We have to break that end goal down into smaller goals that become what your daily actions are, that lead you towards that end goal. And when we realize, and I think this is, you know, a pivotal realization for a lot of people, is what we seek to experience is experience. We mentally focus on our end goal, which is, you know, for most people, weight loss, unless there's a particular problem that they're trying to address, thyroid or something like that. But generally speaking, you know, a large percentage of people are looking for more energy, dropping a few kilos to get fitter, unless there's a specific problem, autoimmune or digestive or something like that that we're dealing with. And in any of those outcomes, the end goal essentially is one that through how we are feeling, we realize that we are closer to that end goal. Mm-hmm. We have more energy, bowel movements are more regular, skin clears up. And what people can forget are focusing on the small little changes that are occurring along the way, mm-hmm. that keep you aligned to realizing you're going in the right direction. When people stay only focused on the numbers changing on the scales, they can become very bitterly disappointed and often fall off the wagon, because unless they actually see a number on the scale change, and that's all they're fixated on, then they forget to become aware of the fact that, oh, well, actually, yeah, I do have more energy than I had 4 weeks ago, mm-hmm. even though the weight hasn't shifted on the scale yet. Or, wow, yes, my bowel movements are more regular, and my skin is looking clearer, and my eyes are looking brighter. And these are all the little things that are almost the prerequisites mm-hmm. before the body is ready to finally drop the weight. Mm-hmm. And it's understanding that, especially when someone has been so off balance for so long, and their body is in a place of deficiency, nutritional deficiency, it can take quite a while for the body to, what I call, saturate itself mm-hmm. with enough nutrients on board where A, the body starts to feel, okay, I can trust that this is going to continue, that I'm not going to have to go back into survival mode again. Mm-hmm. And that there's enough nutrients on board to actually run the detoxification pathway, mm-hmm. which is all part of how and why we lose weight. So when we can educate our clients on the fact that sometimes, and I've had this with a number of my clients, to the degree in which they've been so off path that they have stuck to what I've asked them to do, and they've actually put on weight, and I've said that this
I'm
is...
sure they wouldn't be happy
they
with
wouldn't
that.
be happy with that, and you know, that's not the direction I came to you to go in. But when assessments are showing us that the body is so depleted of key nutrients, mm-hmm. it is a very natural process for the body to literally, everything you give it, hold on to it. Because it's been in such a survival mode mm-hmm. for so long, it takes in any nutrients and holds on to it in the fear that, well, I don't know when I'm going to get it again, so I'm just going to keep holding on to this. Until it finally reaches this saturation point, whereby it realizes, okay, this is my new state, my new environment. Mm-hmm. And I'm at a point now where I am refueled, replenished. I can afford to start letting go of some excess. Mm-hmm. And, you know, as an example, I had one client a few years ago who put on 10 kilos before the body suddenly went ready to let it go.
Wow, what
and
trust that would have taken her a lot of trust in you.
Amazing amount of trust. And education and coaching every step mm-hmm. of the way for her to understand why this is happening and to trust the process. And then what happened was the body reached that saturation point, and then bang, the weight just started dropping off. And it was in those situations you can lose an awful amount of weight in a short period of time, because so much of it is fluid, not actually fat. Mm-hmm. You'd be surprised how much
I know the feeling of holding fluid.
Yeah. And it can feel like, you know, I am just, you know, because you feel big and puffy and, you know, fluidy.
It doesn't feel part of you.
It doesn't.
When you're carrying fluid, it feels like, oh, it's not even me. It's weird.
That's right. Yeah. But because it's so much of it is fluid, when it's ready to drain away, it can drain away very quickly. Mm-hmm. You can lose up to, you know, 3 to 5 kilos in a week, which if it was fat, you know, you'd be doing some very extreme things to get that kind of, which, you know, in our approach, everything is about creating a healthy platform for the body to do what it knows to do innately and naturally.
Cool. Well, that's really, really interesting. If anyone wants to find you, what's your website? Where will people get hold of you?
So we're at energycoachinginstitute.com, and you can find out about us there. Facebook page as well, Energy Coaching Institute, or Joanna Rushton. Can follow us there. We're always putting up some great information, and
I follow you. It is good.
they're very much pages for work and sharing as opposed to the personal Facebook that a lot of people can use it for as well.
Cool. Well, thank you so much for coming in today, and I'm looking forward to speaking to you again.
You're welcome. Thank you.
There you go. That was great.
Cool.